Welcome to the Manders Mindset Podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Welcome back to another episode of Manders Mindset, where we explore the power of shifting your mindset to shift your life. I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I am here today with Ashley Holmes, and she is a holistic fertility coach dedicated to empower women on their fertility journey through the integration of mind, body, and spirit. And I am so excited to be here with her today. Thank you so much for joining me.
I'm excited to be here as well, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
So can you take us down memory lane a little bit? Tell us about your foundation, upbringing, childhood, family dynamic.
I was the youngest of three, so I was the little one. I was the baby, and so I think that says a lot in itself of how I was raised, but it's also interesting how my path sort of found me, because being the youngest when I was 18, I moved from Canada to New Zealand as a nanny on exchange and had no experience with children previously, and then began working with children and then was struggling to have my own children. And so the irony was there of, I love them, now I want to have them, why can't I have them? And so really our path always leads us where we're meant to be. And so it's funny in a way to look back and connect the dots and to understand that everything unfolds for a reason, and to really to trust the journey and to trust the process.
Now, you were the youngest. Did you have brother, sister?
Yeah, older brother and older sister.
How much older were they than you?
My sister was 4 years older than me, and my brother was 7 years older than me. So quite a time gap.
Were you close with them?
Yes.
Yeah, but there was that age gap.
So in a way, you always feel like you're left behind and you always want to catch up. And I see that with my own kids as well, right? My twins are 11 and my young one is 6. So, he thinks he's 11 too. He wants to be doing everything that the 11-year-olds are doing.
And your parents, what did your parents do for work when you were growing up?
So I lived on a farm in Canada, and initially my dad farmed, and then when I was born, he started a seed company. So he sold seed worldwide and traveled all over the place. And my mom primarily was home with us. So back in the days before everybody was working all of the time.
That's awesome. And now you said when you were 18, you left and went to New Zealand.
Yes.
And no, was this something you had thought about, or how did this come about?
I had applied to do something else and I hadn't been accepted. And then I was determined that I was going somewhere and doing something. And so then also being Canadian and living in the coldest part or one of the coldest parts of the country, I wanted to go somewhere where I could have summer, like back to summer, and completely miss winter for a whole year. It was fantastic.
Oh, I understand. I am in Massachusetts, so I understand. Yeah, I'll just say that I understand. Wow. Okay. So I want to backtrack a tad I want to go into schooling a little bit. Like how was grade school, high school, and all of that for you? Were you into school, into your academics?
Yes, I was into my academics. I definitely excelled at writing and English more so than math. And so I did come back and go to school, but it was good. I didn't take 1 year. I took 2 years. Still on the first year. And then I met all these Europeans as well. I went to Europe the next year, came home and saved some money and went to Europe. And glad I did it then, because now I have 3 children and I've not gone very far for a long time.
Oh my gosh. So you went to New Zealand when you were 18. Now, how was that experience?
It was amazing. It was very much a culture shock initially. It was like stepping back in time because this was in 2000. So New Zealand really, it's not like it is nowadays with the internet and everything at the touch of our fingertips. It was very much like the movies, the music, the everything was just like stepping back in time. And it was really actually quite refreshing to be stepping back in time, right? And to get away from the way that North America is and to experience, Christmas in New Zealand for the first time, which is summer, which doesn't feel like Christmas when you're used to growing up in the snow and the cold. And, it's like a lunch and go to the beach. It's just not a big deal. Like, all the holidays are in North America. There's months and months of preparation and lead up and build up and all the rest of it.
And you said you were a nanny and it was the first time you were working with kids.
Yes, I was a nanny. So that was a learning curve, but it was a good learning curve. It was a sweet learning curve. I feel like I really fell in love with kids from that experience and just found so much joy in their pure innocence and their spontaneity and their ability to just be present, say whatever comes out of their mouth in the moment, and
That's so true. I've worked at quite a few daycares throughout my life, and I love that too. They can just say what's on their mind. They don't hold back because they have not been through so much of society's conditioning that like gets us to not say what we're truly thinking or feeling.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. It's unfiltered. And I love that. It's just pure and real and raw. And, they can only experience one emotion at the moment. So if they're sad and if they're mad and if they're happy and jumping and bouncing up and down with excitement, it. There's no mask.
Now, so when did yoga come into play for you? How did you discover that? How did you get down that route?
I actually did my first yoga class ever in New Zealand when I was 18, but a few years later, my husband was like, "What do you mean you fall asleep at then?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just fall asleep. It's great." He's like, "You're not meant to fall asleep, are you?" And this was me being naive and having no idea really what yoga was all about, but getting my foot in the door. And then later when I returned to Canada and my twins were quite small was when I started landing on my yoga mat more regularly. And, a $5 karma class initially got me hooked, but it was purely the energetics that kept me coming back, that made me dive deeper and begin to explore and study and really understand that I'm more than this physical body.
Yeah. So you said you did yoga for the first time in New Zealand. And it wasn't when you were 18.
I went to New Zealand several times. I was very drawn to the place and kept going back.
Okay.
I went 3 times, and the last time was on a one-way ticket and met my husband on that flight. So I didn't come home for a long time. We lived there, we got married. No, but I met him. I met his sister because her partner at the time worked on the farm where I nannied. So I met his sister. And then I met him at her wedding when I went back on my one-way tickets, and the rest is history, so they say.
Oh my God. That's so cute. Oh my gosh, I love that. Wow. So how long after you went to New Zealand the first time and then you went back, you did yoga there for the first time? Like when approximately was that?
That was probably 2000.
Mentioned you kind of just were on the mat. You didn't, we talked about this prior to like even recording. I remember about like doing yoga, but not doing yoga in the certain way, like those different ways to approach yoga.
Oh, definitely. I needed to get my toes more than just wet. And I needed, and so grateful every single day for a deeper understanding to practice it in the way that I truly feel that it's meant to be practiced, and to understand the lasting effect and the impact that has on your entire state of being and your health and your wellness and the way that you can show up for yourself day in and day out. And I think everybody should do yoga, in my opinion. And I feel like there is a yoga practice for every person, and they just need to find that for themselves. And there's different ages and stages where certain practices might suit us best or for what we're experiencing in our life.
Now, you mentioned you got back into yoga when your twins were born and you were doing it more mindfully.
Yeah, I kept showing up, and initially it was the hot yoga that drew me in, the hatha yoga, and the same poses, the same rinse and repeat every time, and that led me to do hot yoga teacher training. But that in and of itself was great, but that's not really what led to my own inner personal transformation and spiritual awakening. It really was studying with a former monk after that and really deeply embodying these practices and understanding the ancient wisdom behind them.
Okay. And now when and where did you study with the monk?
Locally here where I live in Kamloops, British Columbia. And now I'm studying still with his guru in India. So I am a forever student and a forever learner because I feel like there's so much that I want to keep discovering and keep learning. And in doing so, I'm able to help other people even more. It's really understanding our mind and the consciousness of our mind and where we're struggling and where we're suffering, which so many people worldwide are, whether it's infertility or it's something else. We're all going to face obstacles, and often we don't have the resources within us to navigate those with much ease.
Yeah. So what would you say is the first step to discovering some resources?
I think the first step is to be curious, to be open-minded, and to see what else is available to us, because all of these modalities are available to us and they all offer so much healing and possibility for us to be able to tap into. If you're feeling stuck and you're frustrated with where you're at, and you can notice that you keep repeating the same cycles over and things keep showing up for you, then perhaps it's time to choose a different path and a different way forward.
That makes a lot of sense. So now, can you take us down a little bit about your fertility journey, your pregnancy journey, and that process?
Definitely. Over a decade ago, back in Canada, my husband and I were trying to conceive and it wasn't happening. And I was in denial because I was still in my late 20s and thought, I'm young, I'm healthy, this is going to happen, and realizing this wasn't happening. And at that point in time, thinking the only way that we would be able to was to go to a fertility clinic. And yes, we were blessed with twins eventually, but the emotional and mental toll that took on me meant that it wasn't something I was ever willing to go and do ever again. And so I walked away from that experience thinking I couldn't have more children on my own, and didn't have any answers for my unexplained infertility from the doctors. And I feel like I found my own answers. I was able to find those when I found the monk. And when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I didn't land on my yoga mat with that goal in mind, but that is what helped to heal me and to bring more life into our family in a way that felt in alignment with mind, body, and spirit.
Okay. And now, were you doing yoga the first time around when you were trying to get pregnant?
No, I was not
Not at all.
at all.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. That's something to notice, like that. No, just that you didn't have, even though you were going to the fertility clinic, like you weren't doing any of the yoga. You know what I mean?
I wasn't doing any of the yoga. I was going to the gym, but I wasn't doing the yoga. And I think that there is really not enough to be said for how we live our lives, how we think we need to be healthy, and it's all yang and there's no yin, there's no balance. We're bringing this same masculine energy into everything we're doing, including trying to conceive, and it is not the easiest route to get there because we need to have balance. We need to embrace the divine and the feminine within us. And we need to realize that the way to achieve our goals is in the present moment, and to stop focusing so much on the baby and to focus on the inner work that we can be doing, and to shift that locus of control from external to internal. Because I was outsourcing all of my power to the medical experts and thinking if they can't help me, then we're not going to have any children. And it's simply not the truth. And so that was my own discovery and my own learning. And so I really just want to empower women to know that to focus on what you can do for yourself on this journey and to really surrender and let go of the rest. You know, some things you have control over and other things you don't. But there's a lot within us that we can, and it starts in our mind.
No, that's so true. I love how you said it starts in our mind. It makes a lot of sense. You know, that's so fascinating to me, though, that you had such a different experience from one to the other.
I will dive even deeper into that of the mindset the first time around was very much a victim mindset, very much a lot of stress, a lot of struggle, which led to a high-risk pregnancy, an emergency C-section, a longer postpartum recovery. And on the flip side, when I conceived naturally, I was in the middle of prana meditation training. I had a Buddha baby in my belly. I was able to go hiking when my water broke. I was able to have a VBAC and be back at baby and me yoga 10 days later. So I was deemed geriatric at the time, and yet it was a night and day difference, and I felt 1,000 times better.
Wow. I really like how you mentioned as well about the yin and the yang, you know, like there's got to be both with everything. You know, we can't approach it all with just this masculine energy, you know, like it's great and it helps with the goals, but there's got to be that fluidity, like the feminine, like, you know what I mean? Like and even as you mentioned goals, you know, like the masculine with this structure and this routine and like, this is how it has to be. And, you know, like, even like when you mentioned, like, well, if medical said like this, it's not going to happen, like, not necessarily, you know what I mean? Like the case.
No, I truly believe that nothing is set in stone. It just makes you be conscious and aware of the thoughts that you think and the things that you say and the vibration and the energy that you're putting out into the world, and to be aware and conscious of that. Because you're either consciously or unconsciously creating your reality. And that was a big light bulb moment for me on my mat. And I was like, wait a minute. It gave me so much pause of realizing that I had unconsciously been creating the reality that I didn't desire, but that also meant I could consciously create the reality I did desire. And that was a big wake-up call to me to be conscious, to be aware, to stay present as much as possible. Yes, we all have, you know, thoughts that arise throughout the day, but to pay attention and to notice and catch myself when I was thinking about thoughts that didn't serve me, and to consciously choose and know that a thought can just be a thought and I don't need to amplify it with an emotion and a feeling behind it and have that energetically land in my body and stay stuck in that place.
I like that you said that a thought can just be a thought. Okay. So what did you...
I began to learn through meditation that I can be a witness to my thoughts. I can just allow them to pass. I don't need to attach to them. And it really just gives you this space in which to see yourself, to see your life, to have a different perspective of not just like binoculars on, but really this bird's eye view of everything that is unfolding in front of you.
So now, when you started to realize that a thought can just be a thought, what did you start to do differently with these thoughts that you'd have, especially if they were negative?
I began to notice, especially when I was going unconscious during my day. So it would be doing laundry. I don't know why, but my thoughts would always be negative and thoughts would be looping. It was beginning to realize these habits and patterns and to stop, to pause, to ask myself, is that the truth or is that just a story that I have been telling myself for the past however many weeks? And to rewire that thought and to choose a different thought that serves me better in the moment and realize that I'm stuck. I'm on the soup again. This is, the hamster that keeps going round and around, and that I can get off that hamster wheel and choose a different thought pattern, choose something else. I truly believe that in every moment we always have a choice, and it's up to us what we choose. And we can be doing that consciously or unconsciously. I would prefer to be doing as many things day in and day out as I can consciously versus unconsciously.
Now, you mentioned meditation a few times and how that's helped you with pausing. Do you have any tips for anybody when it comes to meditating?
I have so many tips for everybody because I truly feel like we don't always allow ourselves to experience it because we have an expectation of what it's supposed to be like, look like, feel like, and therefore we think that we're not doing it right and we give up. And so to realize, for one, that it is a practice, it is something we can cultivate, that taking a conscious breath right now in through your nose and out through your nose is a meditation in and of itself. Let go of all of the expectations of having to do it perfectly or having to empty the mind. You're not going to empty your mind. You're going to be aware of the thoughts that are drifting through your mind. But to know that we have 60 to 80 thoughts a day and that the majority of those often are negative. So you can give yourself some grace when you realize that perhaps all of these expectations that you have upon yourself are really hindering you and you're just beating yourself up for no reason. And the best meditation that anybody can do, and I recommend, is a yoga nidra meditation, which is like a yogic sleep. And so 20 minutes of yoga nidra is equivalent to 4 hours of sleep. So if you're a stressed entrepreneur, you're trying to conceive, you're sleep deprived because you're a new mom, that is the perfect reset for your nervous system, and your subconscious mind is going to take what it needs from the practice and apply it to you. And so it works on all 5 sheaths of your body. And so it is my favorite and the one that I recommend the most because anybody can do it. You cannot do it wrong.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into fertility coaching? When did you go down that route?
I decided to go down that route during the pandemic when I was at home with my little one and knowing that he truly wouldn't be here if I hadn't embodied all of this. And so I just had this intuitive inner calling to follow this nudge and to offer this to women because I know that so many women are struggling. And I know also this is not what the medical world is offering alongside of it. And without addressing or taking a holistic approach, you're not dealing with the whole person. And you can do and address the physical as much as you want. But if you're leaving the rest, you're not bringing everything to the table. And so a holistic approach has 0 side effects and only positive benefits. So I know that every single person that I work with is better off than when they first met me. And so that gives me so much peace knowing that they are in a way better place, even if there isn't a baby yet, than when they started, because often they're finding me feeling very depleted, very drained, very frustrated, very hopeless, and not knowing what else, but knowing there has to be something else available to them because what they've tried isn't working.
Yeah. No, I love how you mentioned it's more than just the physical, like, and in so many health instances, like doctors and medical professionals are looking at the physical ailments and it's none of this other aspects, and I think there's so much more to that, like they want to throw a pill at everything. And it's like, it doesn't, even if it helps, there are so many side effects to things like that. Like we even talked off air before, like I don't have any kids and I haven't tried to get pregnant, so I don't know if I'm fertile or not, but it's like I dealt with migraines and everybody's solution was all these different medications. And at one point I was fainting from them, like in public places. And it was like pretty traumatizing. Like I was at a public mall and luckily I was with people I knew, but I fainted and had no recollection of it. And it wasn't until I changed my diet and started moving more. I was walking daily. I was meditating. I don't have these migraines anymore. I haven't had them in over a year. And it's like, I went through over 6 different medications, and experienced an immense amount of different side effects, and that's from something as simple as migraines.
It's always, the option to medicate will always be there, but I really, truly want people to get to the root cause, because even if you get pregnant once, it doesn't mean you're not going to suffer with secondary infertility. You haven't actually addressed the root, even if you've medicated your way there for unexplained infertility. Yet I found my own answers because I understood that it was one, my mindset and the energy that I was bringing to it. It was my energetic blockages and things that I had not healed from in my past, and that I was actually the creator of my reality. And so if I was struggling and suffering, I had to take responsibility for that and learn how to deal with and navigate the uncomfortable. Sometimes is the inner calling on this fertility journey is to dive deeper and to understand our bodies better and to understand ourselves better, because often we're out of tune and under touch with our cycles and our nourishment and our stress, and all of these things really truly matter. I was completely disconnected the first time around in mind, body, and spirit, and I was trying to help myself, but I couldn't find what I was looking for.
Yeah. No, I think that's a big key, is like you mentioned, understanding ourselves better. And I think getting to the root of that is going to help with everything. No matter what it is you're trying to do, if you understand yourself better, like the root cause of it. You mentioned energetic blockages. Do you mind delving into like some of what you noticed was an energetic blockage for you?
Definitely. So your energetic body is comprised of your chakras. And so a lot of the work I do is with the root chakra and with the sacral chakra, because at your root, that is your safety, your security. And so even though I'm saying these things and you may be thinking, I feel safe, I feel secure, with your partner, with where you live, perhaps your job, stability, those types of things, perhaps your nervous system doesn't feel that way. And you can do everything under the sun. But if your nervous system is not feeling safe and secure, then it's going to be very hard for you to achieve what you desire in your life. Working with the nervous system is, your reproductive organs are housed in your sacral chakra. And this is where your emotions and your creativity and your sensuality and those energies are housed as well. If you are struggling to conceive, these energies are not in balance, because if they were in balance, then you would be conceiving without an issue. It's not just this. There's the nourishment piece to it as well. And this isn't a one size fits all or a one quick, easy answer. It isn't. But when you address all of these things and you look at all of these aspects of yourself, then you really start to come back to and remember your wholeness, because so many people fill out their forms saying, I feel broken, I need fixing. And it's looking at the narrative within your mind and the conversation that you're having internally with yourself as you're going through this, because most people aren't having a positive self-esteem when they're going through this, because this is affecting them negatively. It's affecting how they feel as a woman, as a wife, as a daughter, and the list goes on. And so there's all sorts of stress and pressure that we're putting on ourselves.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. How would you say breathing ties into that?
Breathing ties into that in a big way, because when we're stressed, we're only breathing shallowly. We're not breathing into our belly. And as much as society says we are supposed to walk around all day with our belly button pulled to our spine, we are not. We are meant to breathe into and fully and completely into our bellies. And they are not meant to be sucked in and tucked in tight to our spine the whole entire day, the whole entire waking hours, right? And the way that we're living isn't often in alignment with what serves us best. And so when we're not breathing fully, deeply, completely, when we're not exhaling all this stagnant energy that is stuck inside of us, then it's not helping us. It's hindering us.
Yeah. And I think so many people don't even realize that they are not even breathing fully, that they are holding their breath.
I know for myself, I thought I was when I actually wasn't. So I had done my hot yoga training, still was not breathing properly. I didn't feel like I actually took my first breath till I was 36 years old, when I was pregnant outside in a labyrinth barefoot, and we were doing a silent practice, and I was pregnant and I couldn't keep up. I couldn't keep pace. And I had to slow down, and I had to listen to my body, and I had to become my own innate teacher, because I couldn't go from external guidance anymore. I had to take my own internal guidance. And that's truly when I feel like I took my first conscious breath, because I finally listened to myself. And as much and as many times in yoga classes as the teachers say, move with your breath, follow your breath, and all the rest of it, I thought I was, and I never was. It was all mechanical. It was all coming from a place of ego. And so I think it's so important to understand and find out and discover these things for yourself, because often the ego's saying, yeah, I'm doing it, and you're checking the box, but you may not be doing it.
So how can people know if they're not really doing it?
I would say, are they in tune and are they listening and are they moving and listening to their body? Or is it coming from outside of them? And can you relax the effort into ease when you're breathing, right? This shouldn't be forced. This shouldn't be, unless you're doing a specific pranayama practice, this should be easeful. It should be natural. It should be like a ribbon floating in the breeze. This shouldn't be something that is either forceful or very faint either, right?
Yeah.
I think every person needs to truly find that for themselves and discover that for themselves, and to realize what their capacity is, because often, even if you do box breathing and you're breathing in for 4 and you're holding it for 4 and you're exhaling for 4 and you're holding it for 4, you can probably do more and build up to more than what you even think is possible.
By like mastering your own mind. By like mastering the internal.
Oh, absolutely. I think so often, even in yoga poses, you're thinking in your mind, I've done this a million times, and then you only go so far, and you don't even see, perhaps you could go further, or if perhaps more is available to you, because you just unconsciously do it the same way to the same degree that you've always done it. And so it's really important to not always do the same side first and to notice how you sit cross-legged the same way all the time and how you fold your arms and how you just unconsciously go about your day and all of the things that you do, and begin to notice and begin to bring more alignment into your whole state of being.
Can you share with us some of the ancient wisdom practice you were chatting about earlier? You mentioned ancient wisdom practices a few times.
Definitely, there's many, but a lot of what I offer and what I teach, it comes from the Vedas. And so the sister science to yoga is Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is the science of life and the natural healing of the mind and body together. So I offer that to my clients so that they understand their inborn constitution and they can work with their body. And instead of doing the fads, trends, diets that don't necessarily serve them, there's a lot of information out there. It's not all nourishing. I promise you that. Especially when you don't understand and aren't working with your specific constitution. And so there's a lot of alignment that needs to happen. When you understand your constitution, you do breathing practices that are in alignment with that. You eat according and as best suited to that as possible, because that's what your body needs to feel its optimal best. And it includes things like daily rituals and self-massage and so many things that we overlook and don't prioritize as important, but truly are. Our digestion is a huge key. Our tongue is a huge key in the state of health that is happening internally inside of us.
So now when a client comes and works with you, what do you both take them through? And what is the first step?
The first step is to write down and look at where they're at, to assess where they're at when they're coming to me, and then to create the path forward. And so it's taking simple, mindful steps forward. And once they start to implement these things, the shifts and changes are noticed quite quickly, quite astronomically, of brain fog clearing that comes with having so much on their plate and so much in their mind, from appointments and acupuncture and all of these things that they're trying to do to actually be in a better state and place of being. And food tasting better is a big one that people have said, because our palate has adjusted to all of these things that have been added to our foods. And once we actually start to eat the foods that are better suited for us, then our taste buds reawaken. It's like your whole body is reawakening to what serves it best.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you heard of a man named Jay Shetty?
Yes, I have heard of a man named Jay Shetty.
So he's got a podcast called On Purpose. He ends it with 2 segments, and I incorporated his 2 segments into my podcast. First segment is called The Many Sides to Us, and there's 5 questions. They need to be answered with 1 word each.
Oh,
Okay. First question is, what is 1 word someone who was meeting you for the first time would use to describe you as?
compassionate.
What is 1 word that someone who knows you extremely well would use to describe you as?
Loving.
What is 1 word you'd use to describe yourself?
Peaceful.
What is 1 word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you as?
Vain.
What is 1 word you're trying to embody right now?
Authenticity.
Second segment is the final 5, and these can be answered in up to a sentence. What is the best advice you've heard or received?
From my mentor, you're not only the problem, but you're also the answer to the solution. So anything you're facing, you're not only the problem, but you're also the answer. So it's within you.
Okay. What is the worst advice you've heard or received?
To do your business a certain way because that's how everybody else is doing it.
Okay. What is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
I do not value television and media at all.
If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be as if someone was reading it, what would you want it to say?
I would want it to say happiness, health, and healing is in our own hands always.
If you could create one law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be? And I want to know why.
I would actually make it a law that schools need to teach yoga and meditation because I feel like a lot of the behavior issues that are prevalent could be helped by children learning these things at a younger age in a way that is developmentally appropriate for them.
I really like that answer. No, I so agree. I think even the meditation could really help. Like teenagers now have such mental health issues. We're seeing such a rise in it. Not that it hasn't always been a thing, but I don't have kids, but my younger sister is 18, and like when she was going through high school, like some of the mental health stuff is crazy, and it's not talked about. There's not yoga, there's not meditation, there's nothing. There is nothing even of the sort.
I really feel like resources need to be given to parents and to children, and that we truly need to look at the way that we're living, but we have to lead by example. I don't value TV and media because I've stopped paying attention to them and putting energy into things that are draining and depleting and don't uplift and elevate me. And how many people are just zoned out and not present and mindful in their day? And where has that gone? And where's the connection that should be happening within our homes?
What do you think the first step is to getting somewhere with all of that?
I think for myself, one of those steps has been that I volunteered at my kids' local school to do yoga with the kids in the classes because that's something that I can do and I'm happy to do and I want to do because I know that and have been told and thanked and had such gratitude from these kids because it's not something that's in their world. And I don't in any way, shape, or form make my kids do these things, but they'll hop into a yoga pose or they'll say "Om" if and when they feel like it in all sorts of random places. And I love it, but I don't ever want it to be something that is forced or isn't coming from them because it's not going to be long lasting and it's not going to have the effect that it could and should and I would want it to have.
That's awesome that you're offering it in schools. I love that. I really do. That's amazing. The first time I ever actually did yoga myself, I was in high school. I was a freshman, and it was actually in PE. They had the yoga studio in the town randomly came and put on yoga for PE for everybody that day. Like gym wasn't an option. We just did a yoga class, and I loved it. I loved it so much. And it's funny because I've reconnected with the owner recently. It was the only time they ever did that. It was like a real that I happened to get to do it, but it was so amazing, like even if it's not something that's like an all the time thing, and even like you mentioned, not forcing it, like I think having the option is really beneficial, like granted there were boys and there were plenty, it was mainly the guys that didn't really enjoy it, that didn't necessarily want to do it, but it's like having that as an option to do was so beneficial.
Absolutely. I've done it outside when I can and like barefoot on the grass to be able to bring that to a kid who probably really needs it, because to get to that state and place so quickly is just, and to know that there's so much more going on for them internally than just these poses and just moving through these forms and shapes. And that is a gift to see and be able to give that, because when I used to teach in person and not all online, you could see in Shavasana, sometimes people would take almost the entire time before they were able to relax, before they were actually able to let go. And I think we just need to be conscious and aware of the stressed out lives we're living and take these moments and prioritize these moments for ourselves, because we can't continually stay in this chronic state of stress.
Yeah. No, that's so true. Do you got any suggestions? Just personally, I'm curious, like for the world in general, to get mindfulness practices offered to younger people? Like, I'm curious. It's something that I really think would really benefit.
I think my kids have had some great teachers over the year who have incorporated things like that during the day. My kids, before I even knew and had practiced much Kundalini yoga, they were doing sa ta na ma, sa ta na ma with their teacher. And I was very impressed when I came to find out and to understand that obviously she practiced that and she brought it into the classroom, but she didn't make it a big thing. But I think that the little mindful moments that you can take to perhaps turn out the lights, to, depending on the age of the kids, to have one hand on their heart, one hand on their belly, to say something that they actually meaningfully are grateful for in the moment, to actually connect them to the body, to ground them. I think there can be so much energy, right? And it can just be all up here and all in our heads. So if we can bring that down and help to ground kids more. And sometimes kids may not have the best home life. They may not have that grounding support at home. So if they can have sort of an anchor at school or people that they know that they can go to for that, is really important.
Yeah, that is so true. I like how you mentioned that we don't know what the kids are going home to, and that's something, like, as I mentioned, I worked at daycares, and granted, I was never like an actual teacher, but that's something we talked about with the little kids. Like, we don't know exactly what home life is like. So giving them the option to have mindfulness, relaxation, like times for that, I think is key. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you speaking with me.
Thank you. I've enjoyed this conversation, and I feel like we have really touched on so many important aspects.
I know, we really did. And where can listeners connect with you?
You can connect with me, and you are more than welcome to join my Holistic Fertility Coach Facebook group. It's a safe, sacred space to land in and be in and ask questions and be supported by people who are in the same space and place as you, because no one should be suffering alone, and know that you're not alone. And there are many people that are willing and able to help you. And whether it's with your mind or your body or your spirit, to really take that time day in and day out to consciously do something for your mind, body, and spirit. And what that looks like for you can be absolutely personalized, but I think to put that at the forefront.
Awesome. And I will link that in the show notes. And do you have any final words for the listeners? No pressure. I do just like to give it back to the guest.
I would just love to say that one of my favorite quotes, and really, if you find me on any social media, you will see that my logo is a baby coming out of a lotus flower, and it really stems from the quote, no mud, no lotus. And so if you're in the dark, if you're in the thick of it and you think there's no light, that to just know that everything is unfolding as it is meant to, and that you are exactly where you are meant to be, even if it doesn't feel like it in this moment.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Amanda.
And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Mander's Mind. In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you. And you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.